Another way that we can do this, and I'm going to remove the file so that we can do it from scratch again, and you'll see nothing's there. So another way that we can do this is Bob can switch over to be in that Project X group. Okay? The way that he does that is with the new group command, NEWGRP. So he switches over with the new group command to the Project X group. Now when he makes the directory, projects, let's do an ls-l and see what happened. Now the projects group directory is owned by the group Project X. See, he didn't have to do the change owner command because he switched over to be in that group. So whenever you're in that group, whatever files you create or directories you create, take on that group ownership. Okay? Still, he has to do a change mode command over here to get rid of the read and execute permissions for others, and he can do that again the same way as he did before. So now we've got the projects groups or folder set up so that it's read and execute permissions for the Project X group. Let's talk a little bit more about groups and user private groups in particular. What I want to show you first is I want to show you how to make a normal user the administrator of a group. We do this with the gpassword command. We use the capital A option to say make this person the administrator of this group. Now when I do that, now Bob can add and delete users from the Project X group as he sees fit. Let me show you how to do that. Let's switch over to be the user Bob. Now he can add somebody to the group Project X now with the lowercase a option. A stands for add. So he can add the user Alice to the Project X group. And there it says adding user Alice to the group Project X. He can also take somebody out of the Project X group. You could say delete Candy from the Project X group. And now it says removing Candy from the group Project X. And if we cat the etc group file, you'll see now that Candy is not in the Project X group, but Alice is. Now, this is nice because perhaps Bob is the project manager for some project, and people are coming and going off the project. Well, now he doesn't have to contact me to say, okay, take away this person's permissions from looking at the Project X stuff, or give this person permissions to look at the Project X stuff. I'm out of the loop. I don't have to take care of any of that, and Bob can add and remove those users. By making someone the administrator of a group, you're not giving them privileges to do anything else on the system. All they can do is add and delete users from a particular group. Okay, let's stop being Bob here, and we're back to root now. Okay, let's talk about this group administrator idea in combination with user private groups. Let's go into the Candy directory and look at this. Candy's got this file. It's called diary. And right now, the file diary is readable by everybody on the system, and it's also readable by everybody in her group. But nobody's in her group except for herself, because it's her user private group. Well, if I make Candy the administrator of her user private group, now she can do whatever she wants in terms of adding and deleting users from her user private group. This file diary she has, she doesn't want everybody on the system to be able to read this. The only person she wants to be able to read this file is her friend Alice. Okay, so let's switch over to be the user Candy. And what she can do now is she can add Alice to her user private group. So now Alice is in Candy's group. She can also take away read privileges for others on her file diary. So now if we do an ls-l listing again, you'll see the group Candy has read permissions on this file, and now Alice is in the Candy group. Okay? Should Alice be able to read this file? Well, except let's go up one directory and make sure Alice can enter this Candy's directory. So if we do that and we do an ls-l, you'll see the Candy directory here does not have read and execute permissions for the group. So if she adds that, if she says change mode, add read and execute permissions for Candy, now we do an ls-l, you'll see that people in the Candy group now have read and execute permissions to her or to her directory Candy, and they should be able to go in there. Okay, so let's stop being the user Candy, and now let's be the user Alice. Okay, let's see if Alice can list the files in Candy's directory. She can. And can she print out the diary? Yeah, she can. So now we've got it set up so that Candy can share files with exactly who she wants to share files with. This is the great advantage of user private groups. The users have the ultimate flexibility on who is in their group and therefore who gets to read their files. Let's wrap up this nugget with a little review of what we talked about today. We've talked all about user administration in Linux. We learned how to add and remove users from the system using the user add and the user delete utilities. We also talked about how to modify existing users using the user mod utility. Remember, we used the user mod utility with the capital G option when we wanted to change the groups that a particular user was in. We also learned the group add command. The group add command with a -R option added a group that had an ID number under 500 when we wanted to add a group that was not a user private group. We talked about the gpassword command. We used the gpassword command with the capital A option to add an administrator for a group, with the lowercase a option to add a member to the group, and a lowercase d option to delete a member from the group. In our discussion of file permissions and modes, we learned the change mode command to change the permissions on a file, and we learned the change owner command to change the ownership of the file, either the actual owner or the group ownership of the file. And remember, one of the big picture concepts we talked about today was this idea of user private groups. At the end there, we set up Candy so she had ultimate flexibility on who could read her files and enter her directories because we made her the administrator of her own user private group. Well, I hope you found this nugget informative, and thanks for viewing.